this is an attempt to answer a question that I think I can answer, but I can't answer it quickly. It requires a lot of words. And the question is, how can we prove matter is a projection of consciousness? And how can you live in a closeted state instead of being affected by reality? The first question is, and technically, really, when you get to the full picture of it, the question is kind of the answer to itself. Pay attention. So how can you prove that matter is a projection of consciousness? First, you have to understand some things. Specifically, if you understand the Hermetic principles, that's a good place to start, because ultimately that's kind of the foundation of the answer to that question. And there's 7 of them. The Hermetic principles, if you're not familiar, are principles that, according to legend, were taught in the ancient times of when the pyramid builders were still a civilization, people of that time frame. Because they didn't think like us. They weren't confined with limiting themselves to certain behaviors or certain beliefs. They kind of just, they ran with it. And they ran with it for good reason, because they had a better understanding of things than we do today, if all this is true. And if it is, because I understand it differently than most people I've ever met, so I'd say that I'm pretty good at understanding what the fuck I'm about to say. So, the Hermetic principles, there's 7 of them. And each one is kind of, think of it like the invisible clockwork that keeps everything in the universe going, between planets going around stars, between the way we live on Earth to the activities that we take part in every single day. Everything is part of this bigger scheme of things. You can kind of think of it like the Force in Star Wars, which is basically what it is. That's exactly what it is. They just rebranded it for the movies and called it the Force, but that thing, that the will of the Force, that's a real thing. It's a real thing, and it kind of controls everything that's going on. Sort of controls. I mean, everything's got its own. It's hard to explain. Which kind of gets into the other question, which is how do you live in a causative state instead of being affected by reality, and that is to understand these things. So, picture in your mind a watch. Take off the back piece and you see all the gears and the tick-tock things and the dials and all the stuff, the shit that moves, that essentially works together to make the hands move at the precise time to measure time. That's kind of what is behind reality, what we see. So all this invisible stuff that you see, that you don't see rather, is that clockwork. And it's going on everywhere. It's all over the place. It's what keeps us moving. Everything. It's what keeps the planets going around each other. It's what keeps people interacting with each other. It keeps this thing that we call life going. Because everything, all matter, is energy. And energy is consciousness. So the fact that we are just here means that we think. And we want to stay alive. And we want to understand things better. And we want to be able to prove things like how energy is consciousness. Because that's what we do. We want to understand ourselves. So that, in essence, well, I guess you said matter. But matter is energy. Energy makes matter. And because we are matter means that we are energy. And if we are energy, we are consciousness. And if we're consciousness, we want to understand what the hell we are. So I guess that's kind of proof enough that consciousness projects matter, because if we didn't have matter, then we wouldn't be able to experience ourselves and the environment that we create around us. because you can only play with yourself for so long before you get bored and you want a playmate. So that's why we have other people, that's why we have things like that to interact with. We make it for ourselves so that we can enjoy it, so that we have a purpose, so that we have a reason to keep on going. And in another aspect of that, you can even take away the principle aspect of it, the quantum metaphysic aspect of it. Take that all away. And you can even say that, oh no, I think that's even more complicated, don't you think? I mean, we have to put energy into creating something. You as an individual you had to create energy, you had to obtain energy to think of that question, to even want to think of that question, because who knows how many things happened prior to this that led to that question finally being asked. And luckily, being that I believe that I'm probably one of the few people that can answer this question, I just have to be around at the right time, which is pretty awesome, if you think about it. I'm getting distracted. I have a big ego. Where was I? So if you want something, if you want to create something, this question, for instance, you wanted to manifest an answer to come to you, and I see you got a whole bunch of them, but I doubt any of them are going to be as thorough as mine. That being said, I needed to obtain some energy so that, one, I could think of the right answer, of how I wanted to word it, and then actually get the effort to do this. So in a sense there, we're creating matter in that. To create something is to make something that wasn't there before. And the fact that I am actually making this video when this video doesn't exist, that means that we are now creating something. In a sense, using our energy to create something out of nothing. Because this was not there, now it is there. And I guess since this is kind of like a digital form, and if you really want to break it down, we used energy to create energy, to project energy, so that we take in energy to go out and create more energy. Things, if you want to say that. And energy being matter. So the Hermetic principles, I'll get on that, because I've been wanting to talk about these goddamn things for a long time. Nobody ever wants to hear them. So there's 7, and they all work in conjunction with each other. They are all almost like the individual cog pieces that come together to make everything else happen. Everything happen. But each one works off of the other one, so it's more than just knowing them, because some of them are a little hard to conceptualize, because if you don't realize that they all are working in tandem with each other, then some of the concepts don't make sense. So even in understanding it, you have to be able to see it up here for it all to make sense. But here's the cool thing, is that once you see it up here, then you can see it out there. And when you can see it out there, then that's kind of when you stop living in a causative state. And I'm not saying that the Hermetic principles are the end all be all, because they're not. They're flawed. I have several issues with them myself, which probably makes sense why there's no real big talk about that extra stuff, because nobody thinks like this anymore. At least none that I've seen. Very difficult to find. Once in a while. I mean, they do exist. I'm not the only person that sees like that. There's other people. Just never met them. So, probably in a loony bin. That's probably where you go to meet people like this. So what was I saying? So there's 7 of them, okay? So I'll go in the order that I know them, which is the principle of mentalism. Principle of mentalism states that everything is mind. So basically that's the answer to your question, is the principle of mentalism. All is mind, the universe is mental, meaning literally what you asked is the universe is a projection of thought. of thought energy. Consciousness, which is energy, which makes up everything, because everything's energy, even matter, and energy is everything. Everything's made of energy, and if everything is also the mind, then the mind is energy. But I'll get back to that. So the principle of mentalism states that everything is mind, that all things are mental, that even this roll of tape has some level of consciousness to it, to some degree. Same with this rock. Because everything, all of the matter that, everything that makes up the molecules, which when you break it down far enough is energy, all of that is mental, so henceforth we have thinking tape and a thinking business card. Thinking animals, thinking trees, everything thinks, even your car. Even this sucky thing has a little bit of mind to it. It's a machine mind. I mean, when you plug it in, it has a certain set of directives that need to take place in order for it to do the thing that it's supposed to do, which is to suck things up. So, it has a very limited thinking capacity, but it's there. But then, when you break it down, even the little pieces that make it up all have a little mind of their own, to a degree. I think. That would suck to be stuck in this form and only be able to think all the time. Get bored eventually. What the hell was I saying? Alright, so that's the principle of mentalism. Everything is mind. All is mental. And hopefully by the time I get through all these, it'll make more sense. By the way, this might be a little long. The second one is the principle of vibration, which is essentially what I just said before. Everything is energy. Everything vibrates, in the sense that there is nothing that is still. There's nothing that doesn't move, because everything's energy. Everything's a vibration. It's a spark that just sets off a chain reaction of other sparks and other sparks and other sparks, like the sun. Just like a sun. Like when those two, oh, that makes a lot of sense. When those two initial particles come together and then they start swirling around each other, and then eventually a bang happens and all the other molecules that are around them starts banging, and then we have a giant sun eventually. Which is kind of like the same concept of the Big Bang. Big Bang. Something happened where there was an explosion and everything was made. With the Hermetic principles, that actually makes sense. A positive and a negative charge swirling around each other, and eventually setting off a little chain reaction that sets off all the other positive and negative charges that are positive and negative forces. Whatever those forces are, I don't know. I'm sure there's some way to break them down even more. But I'm getting way, way, way out there. What we're trying to figure out is the fact that everything is energy. I'm trying to conceptualize that. So then when you break things down even at a quantum level, I think this is a thing, is that once you break down an atom into the quarks and all the other shit that goes into it, it's just essentially just a little spark. And that little spark is the vibration that is consciousness. Because it has to think. Because if it can't think, then it doesn't exist, because nothing can't exist. Because nothing is the absence of anything, so nothing can't be something. You get what I'm saying? So you can't actually, I'm actually having an argument on one of my groups over this right now. You can't have nothing. Sorry, I'm having a thought. You can't have nothing. It's just that simple. You can't show me nothing. Nothing doesn't exist. I didn't lose the thought. I'm just, something else popped up in my head. So once Just having some downtime. Good. I'm getting way ahead of myself, which I tend to do. So let's rewind it a little bit. Everything is energy. Everything's vibration. Your thoughts, you, chair, all this stuff. Energy is also light. Light's energy. It's highly focused energy. So if vibration is thought, thought is energy, energy is matter, then light is also thought, it's also matter. Your body is made of thought. It just... Why am I talking to monkeys? This is depressing. What the hell do we do? I can't live like this anymore. This is fucking torture. I feel like I stay here, I'm in jammies all the time. If I go out there, I have to stay dressed all the time, so I won't have time for jammies. I like jammies. I get a shit ton of money. Gambling. Fucking gambling. I hate gambling. It's incredibly risky. No one will trust me with money. I would. I'm thinking a lot. My sister. I should plead for help. I can't stay here anymore. this spiritual awakening shit can kiss my ass. How about that? How about that for something? Bullshit. I didn't ask for any of this shit. Maybe some like weird fantasy from when I was a kid, but this is horseshit. I hate it. It's the worst goddamn thing ever. You're just miserable all the time. Can't do anything. Can't be around people for too long. You can't do anything because you can't. You're so busy up here all the time that you can't get the fuck out of it. Because you can't appreciate what you got. I don't know. Not only that you can't appreciate because you know you're not supposed to be here. Oh yeah. I got myself involved in. No one wants anything to fucking do with me. I was just following my intuition. Isn't that fucking weird? That's the weirdest thing. I was just doing what felt natural. Even before I even believed in intuition, I was just doing. And it all led up to this point. Right, and I'm doing exactly what it is I'm supposed to be doing, which is fucking diddly shit. That doesn't make any sense. I can talk to people online. I have a family. Had. They don't exist anymore. It does. It can't be nothing. Like, there are days when I see things and I feel like no one else sees them. That's just weird shit. I know people see the weird shit. They tell me about that. And everyone sees the weird shit. I think it means more about me. That who's fucked up. I see weird shit. I feel like I'm the bringer of the end of the world. Sounds awesome. Absolutely crazy. Which is funny because when I was younger, I got a tattoo on my chest. From the show that I liked. The guy who had the tattoo was the bringer of the end of the world. And the show was actually about a situation similar to the situation I find myself in. Not exactly, but in a weird kind of metaphorical way. Stuff that goes along with it. There's a lot of weird stuff, a lot of weird, crazy shit that I'm still finding it very difficult to get comfortable with. And the fucked up thing is, I know people that are comfortable with this stuff, and I don't know how to be. Maybe I'm not supposed to be. You've always got to be uncomfortable at some point. You can't not be uncomfortable. I feel like I'm always uncomfortable though. Why? It's different. I hate being different. I mean, I like it, but I hate it. You can't fully like or dislike something. Yeah. I mean, you can. You just vote. Well, no. Okay. Strike that. No, you can. You can like something and dislike it at the same time. Because when you like it and dislike it, then you can figure out what you don't like about it and what you do like about it, and make something else. So that's good. That's a plus. That's a real big positive of being able to think different. Because I think a lot of people can't do that. I think a lot of people just see black and white. I don't know. But I think that's what that awakening thing is all about. In the first place was people learning how to see the middle ground. That makes sense. So that's not a bad thing. So that would mean that now that I'm realizing that, it means that probably a whole bunch of other people are realizing it too. You're trapped in a world of people like me. Sounds awesome. Oh man, I hope that happens. I would like it and I would hate it. But on the bright side, because I like it and hate it at the same time, I can figure out a different way to go. Because of the principle of polarity, which states that everything has an opposite. That there's always going to be good, there's always going to be bad, there's always going to be light, there's always going to be dark, loud and quiet, soft and hard, sharp and dull, loud and quiet. It's always something in the middle. I mean, there's always two poles of something. Positive, negative. thing's happening again. I guess that's a good way to explain the principles, is by suppressing them, conceptualizing them. Just kind of what my brain is doing right now. It fucking sucks. It's like embarrassing stuff on this. Am I embarrassed? I don't know. So I was hoping. Good point. I knew what I was getting into. I was smoking a cigarette before when I was debating doing this, and I realized this was going to take a while. It's not easy. Because even in my head, I was saying, you can't just think it. I was thinking about what I was going to say to anyone listening to the video, because if you want to know how to answer those questions, then you would have to watch the video. And when I was talking to this imaginary audience, I remember saying that it's more than just knowing them, because anyone can know them. You can know anything, but you don't know shit. It's not until you can conceptualize what it is that you know that you can actually prove that you know it. Which is why I think I do a better job of explaining things than other people sometimes. That's me. I could be wrong. No, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. Everyone explains things in their own way. I take that back. I take it back. Take it back. Everyone explains things in their own way that makes perfect sense to them. I think I do the best job because I like hearing myself talk. Well, so does everyone. I already do live in a world of me. So I guess this video isn't for you guys, for the people that don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Because there are people that don't know what I'm talking about. That actually have a hard time understanding stuff like this. You're not supposed to explain it. I don't know. Well, I guess not, right? Because everybody has their own way of doing it. But there are people who who are kind of going down the same route that I was, because everybody goes through it differently. I just have to be really good at the one that I did, the way that I went, if that makes sense. Where does that come from? So, no, that's another one of my complaints, is you talk to people that aren't there. I mean, they're there. It's you that you're talking to, but it's a long story. It's almost like a multiple personality type of thing, but it's not. You can come off that way because you have rapid mood shifts, because everything is emotion, nothing is still, so your mood fluctuates constantly. So when your mood fluctuates, your personality fluctuates. Everyone goes through it. It's a natural thing. There's nothing weird about it. Even schizophrenics, same thing. Their perception of reality also shifts. So sometimes they're here, sometimes they're there. They're kind of, it fluctuates. You can't. There's nothing you can do about it, because you can't. You're not supposed to stop it. Because when you stop it, wait, you get your ups. Ups and downs. Yeah. Fluctuates your ups and downs. When you stick to one or the other, or you try to stay balanced, there's a buildup on one end. It's a buildup of energy, because energy is what moves that thing up and down. And when you have that buildup, it builds up a lot of fucking tension inside of you, which is past traumas. This is current traumas that keep on repeating over and over again, because since you have that energy built up inside of you, you keep taking the same steps over and over again. You're not actually changing anything, because you need to feel those ups and downs in order to circumnavigate around your life, and to see what's going on and what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed, what's good, what's bad. Because good and bad, just like everything else, it's got two poles. But once you understand good and bad, then you can start making different decisions based on, because not everything in the bad category is bad, and not everything in the good category is good. So in that sense, you can take some shit, put it together, and make something new out of it, a new thought. But then same thing happens again, because when you make something new, there's an opposite to it. So think of it like this, like black and white. And this is what I was saying, well, like when I had problems with the Hermetic principle, there's some flaws to it, because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just two things. So you have black and white, which is usually like a black and white thinking, two-dimensional thinking, what most people do. But then from black and white, you have shades of gray in between, which is a third dimension of thought, which is your third option, right? Then, because everything is dual, we have black and white, and now we have the shades of gray. We need an opposite of that, which is color. So in reality, you got it's four-dimensional. But what's color? Even black and white. Okay, black and white is the black is the lack of light. White is the full spectrum of light. So you think, I mean, you really can't see light. You see what light's reflected off of. So in reality, technically, if you want to speak, what we think of as light is actually dark, and what's dark is actually light, because light shows us what's dark. If you want to get that. But for this case, we'll say that white is the presence of all the full spectrum, and black is the absence thereof. Then you have, but black and white, but what's light? It's energy. So the shades of gray are energy. Color is energy. It's a frequency, just like everything else. There's also sound, there's also invisible, you get the visible spectrum, you have the invisible spectrum, you have you also have the physical spectrum as well. Gas, solids, liquids. And I'm sure if you dig far enough, then that kind of goes back to energy as well, because energy kind of is the point in which things kind of shift again, because we go back to energy, and what's energy is thought, and then energy also splits with matter. It's a whole bunch of shit. It's a lot of shit to this. I mean, you almost gotta know quantum physics to really fucking get this shit down. But here's the fucked up thing, is like, if you understand this stuff, you know quantum physics. The only thing you don't know is the terminology. Because quantum physics ripped off this stuff, and they gave it not really rip it off. They just repackaged it and put a fancy title on it. That's it. Quantum physics is thousands of years old. There ain't nothing new. How do I know this? I was just reading an article on quantum consciousness, and they were using all these technical terms that I didn't fucking understand, but the overall picture of the article was exactly explaining the Hermetic principles, just at a different level of thought. I mean, the guy was clearly way overbuilding his intellect and using like very big words. He did not want people to understand what the hell he was talking about. Regular people, at least. Which I thought was a dick move. Because there's an easier way of explaining it. Well, you know, I mean, it's not a dick move, because he was just explaining it the way that he knows how to explain it. Just like I explained the way that I know how to explain it. Either way is any better, because I still understood what he said. I knew what he was talking about, and though I didn't know the formula, the math formulas, I understood the concept. Whatever. And the reason for that is because of the principle of correspondence. I'm sure you heard the saying, as above, so below. There's another part, as above, so below, as within, so without. So he was saying there's always two sides to everything, as above and below, in and out. What that means is basically that which is above the material world, just the energetic world, is reflected by that which is below. Energy is mirrored by its opposite, its projection, matter. So everything that's happening in the energetic world is reflected by what's happening down here, around you, all over the place. The energetic world is that invisible world that we were talking about in the very beginning, the clockwork that keeps everything going, which is a mind. So when you take the totality of all of that energy, because it is yet infinite, there is something around it. It's like a, ever heard the term cosmic egg? Or even Men in Black. The universe is in Orion's belt. I mean, the universe, that little ball, that was the universe. So it's exactly like that. Think of that little marble. If you haven't seen Men in Black, I would watch it because it's pretty awesome. Probably realer than people think. So that little marble, which encapsulated a universe, that's exactly what I mean. So now that little marble thing, imagine that's a mind inside another you or me, which is essentially what it is. That which is above is reflected by that which is below. So that mind, the Hermetics call it the all. It's a singular mind that projects everything else out, right? So if that's the case, then every single person, me, you, your neighbor, everybody else, at least this is the theory, is a reflection of that mind. So your mind is the mind that projects out everything. Now, if you think back to like the Matrix, where Morpheus says to Neo, they're talking about what is real. What's real is just electrical impulses that are picked up by your sensory organs and then processed by your brain to create this output reality. Nothing is solid. This isn't solid. It's made of little bits of matter and energy. And when you break it down far enough, you can zip right through it. It's just empty space. Empty space. There are particles that we don't see that make up space. It's not nothing in between you and me. It's something. It's matter. And because we are a projection of that matter, we are just a consciousness that's floating through this electronic energy field that we call existence, and we interact with things that we can perceive, but we cannot interact with anything we can't perceive with, except on a much more quantum level. This kind of gets into quantum theory and superpositions, I believe, would be one thing. So you can think of it like this: is like literally your physical reality is an organic virtual reality. Your face is the goggles. You're wearing a goggle suit, basically. And that the world is moving around you. This little body is just kind of appears to be walking around, when in reality your consciousness is just is a center point, and it's imagining that you're moving and doing all these things that you're really not doing. I mean, you're doing them, but you're really not doing them because they don't exist, because they're not real. We made them up. You made them up to keep yourself busy, to give yourself purpose, because someone else told you that you had to do that. Because these universes, right? So we'll go back to the universe on Orion's belt, which is just a marble. Now imagine that marble was the center of your mind. That the entire universe is projected out through you. You have your own universe. Your universe is yours. This is probably going to make a bunch of megalomaniacs. Fuck another world like me. Hopefully none of you understand it. So now imagine that every single person has the same thing, also has a marble in their head. Being the universe, okay? We project out the universe. We can go anywhere we want in space and time, however we want to get there. Here, and then we figure out, once we know where we want to go here, then we can, it's just a matter of us finding a way to do that. In some sense. It's interesting. It's hard to, that's something that's a little more hard to explain. Is that you set yourself up for your future when you think about the future that you want to have. And it's like, you gotta get out of that causation thing. You gotta stop trying to force things to happen and just let them happen, I think, is how the best way to explain that. Like, what I'm doing is the complete opposite of what I should be doing, which is I shouldn't be doing anything. Sometimes. The best course of action is inaction until it's not anymore, because, like everything else, it's got up and down. And doing stuff and not doing stuff is kind of up and down type of thing. You don't need to be doing stuff all the time. Sometimes you gotta think. Because if you don't think, then you just continue doing the same thing over and over again. But then again, doing that same thing over and over again is thinking. Work for one person is different from work from the other person. This is my work. My work is to think. I can't work a regular job, like I was saying before, because I can't fucking stop thinking like this. And why the fuck would I want to stop thinking like this? I prefer thinking like this than the way that I used to think, because I used to think like everybody else, but I don't want to do that anymore. Which I didn't think was a problem, because everybody always says be yourself and do what comes natural, and that's what I was doing, was doing what was coming natural, and for some reason it kept on taking me down this weird fucking journey through life. And it was a normal life, it was an exciting, fun life, but there was parts of it that I didn't tell anybody about, that I didn't talk about, which I think is like everybody else. There was like weird shit that was going on, and I didn't know how to explain it, so I never talked about it. I did some weird shit though. I think when I was in high school, I reached out to the CIA to let them know that I could see things before they happened. Whoa, that makes a lot of sense. What a... This is so embarrassing. I hear voices in my head sometimes. Voices of people. They distract me. I'm continuing my thinking. It's usually people I know. Sometimes it's people I don't know. But here's the thing, is I've been doing this for so long, I'm very good at, how do you put it, thinking about, sorry, my mom's yelling at her dog. She's a lovely woman. The fucking dog yips like a motherfucker. She doesn't normally yell at the dog. So what was I saying? I got completely thrown off track here. That goddamn dog. So sometimes I can hear people's voices in my head, and what I mean by that is, when I have an experience with anybody, even doing this right now, this very moment, my mind is also going at the same time and showing me the potential outcomes and repercussions of everything that I'm doing and what I'm saying, because I used to get yelled at a lot for not thinking before I did something or said something, and they're right, I didn't, but now I do. But it's kind of like I'm thinking about it as I'm doing it, to figure out as many possible outcomes as humanly possible, because if you think about what you do before you do it, then you kind of know the right and wrong thing to say and do, so you don't do the wrong thing. At least that's the hope. But again, when we go back to the whole polarity thing, like, if you only think of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, you kind of limit yourself. So when you think about what you should and you shouldn't do, and then start making a whole bunch of other different options from there, then you can think of different outcomes that you'd like to see, and then it's just a matter of allowing whatever experience that's going to happen, and just go with the flow. That's really what it is. It's like you're there's something you want to do, and just out of the blue, someone says, "Oh, you want to do this, you want to do that," and then, hey, oh shit, I was just thinking about it. It's called synchronicity. It's when the mind and reality are aligned for a moment. It's like when you think of somebody and they call. Everyone has that happen. That's one of those weird things. When you are thinking of like a song or something, and it comes on, or you turn on a song and it just happens to be the right song that you want to hear, that you needed to hear to figure out this thing that's going on in your life. Or you're thinking of a bug and this bug flies by. You're thinking of somebody, or you see something happen and you think of somebody that you lost. Signs. Some people call them miracles. Carl Jung, who was a very well-respected psychologist, called them synchronicities. It's a great term for them. Kind of what I call them. I haven't thought of a cool name for them. It seems to be what everybody does. Some people call them coincidences. There's lots and lots of names for them. So it's you talk about one thing, you talk about the same fucking thing. What was the point of this? This is one of the problems. Is I lose track with where I was going with this up. Let's rewind a little bit, and that's kind of what that article I was talking about earlier was about. The quantum consciousness article was it was an explanation of synchronicity based on quantum consciousness science. And it was breaking down the process of why you can explain how synchronicities are explained. It was trying to take the mysticism out of them and make it into a natural occurrence in nature, a natural occurrence, which they are. That's the thing, that they are. There is nothing mystical about them. All the mystical stuff is it's not real. It's fun. But think of it like this: the ritual that you did, if you do rituals and play with magic and stuff, even tarot cards or anything in astrology. Am I blowing all the fun out of everything? No, I don't think so. Just think of it like this. Because now that you know what everything's not, I'm not saying I'm right. This is just one option, and there's always another. Everything's dual. And who knows, maybe that's a fucking really great idea. This might help me figure out some things. If I do get to take over the world, I mean, at least now I'll know what society I don't like and what society I do like, and we can all work together and make a new one. That'd be great. I don't have to rule the world. I just would prefer to, just for at least a day or two. But then again, I don't know. There's repercussions that come with shit like that, I guess. Enough about me. So that's that article. What was the point of me remembering that? I don't know. I wonder if I post this does get posted. I wonder if people are going to watch this far. I was going to do a live, but the link wasn't working. Probably a sign that I shouldn't do what I'm doing. Why take away everyone else's fun because I'm not having it anymore? Just go with the flow. I mean, it's happening again. Enough people are going to be able to follow this. Could be wrong. But it could be right. And worst case, there's, oh, well, look at it this way. There's always going to be, for every person that doesn't get it, there's going to be one person that does get it. So every plus has a negative. And if there is someone that gets it, then there will be someone who will be able to improve upon it in their own way and make something that makes sense to them and the people who understand what they're saying. And then same thing will happen, and the same thing will happen again, and the same thing will happen again, until everybody has kind of like the same way of thinking, just in their own way. Which is technically how things are supposed to be. You're not supposed to be having just Republican, just Democrat. We don't. There are minor sides, but the minor sides need to have a bigger voice. I guess technically what the Democrat and Republican parties need is the light side and the dark side to each of those to balance this whole thing out. 50-50 isn't a smart thing. You gotta have all or nothing. Well, really, technically, even like a four-way. I mean, it would work for so long until they started working together, conspiring together. And technically, I mean, that is kind of how it is. Because the government that you see on TV isn't real, it's make-believe. There are people in front of prompters doing things to make you think that this is all real. From a societal standpoint, I mean, listen, the quantum stuff, that's way fucking out there. Most people aren't gonna fucking get that. They get that shit. That's why I gotta be working with like fucking smart people. I can't be working fucking flipping burgers. I need to be working with people like Elon Musk and like fucking Michio Kaku. These are the people I should be associating myself with. If you want my personal opinion, I shouldn't be fucking talking to monkeys on YouTube. Forgive. It's not my fault. I was born this way. With everyone else. That's why I can't hold it against anyone. I mean monkey in the nicest term. I'm a monkey too. It's not like you're the only monkey. But what I mean is, those folks, they think in a different capacity than most people. Or at least they're portrayed that way. If you want my opinion, I think everybody thinks exactly the same. We're just made to believe those guys. Oh. Yeah, but why? So there's less people in control. That makes sense. Less people in control until finally it gets consolidated into one. Because I guess over human history we've learned that having multiple sources of power just doesn't work. Which is probably why the world is all fucked up the way that it is. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. Why? People don't like it when you tell the future. They'll get thrown in jail and banished and burnt at the stake. That's definitely not what I want at all to happen. Not in the least. I mean, I mean, well, technically, I guess it's not the worst thing either. Because if I'm right, and then everyone gets pissed off that I told the future and then they sacrifice me to their dark gods, then my theory is right. And then that means that I'm not here anymore. I would go back to being the marble mind, and then I would make your lives a living fucking hell. Forever. I would make you all live forever. In constant torment. While I walked around free as spirit. I think that would be it, but I don't think that would be a very nice thing to do. So nobody does anything wrong. I don't think anybody does anything wrong. I think everything happens exactly the way that it's supposed to. I don't like the outcome of things sometimes. So I get a feeling that's going to regret saying that one day. But I think lots of things. I think lots of things, but I don't believe everything that I think. Some of it's like fucking out there. For instance, what got me on this tangent, which is the voices of people that I don't know. Because like I said, I hear voices of people that I do know. And they're distractions from thinking about this other stuff, which is a good thing. Not really. No. No, because even if I would cut off all distractions, then eventually I need a distraction. That's where girlfriends come in, right? That's when people have girlfriends as a distraction. Boyfriends, girlfriends, boyfriends. Makes sense. What's the other thing? Oh, that's probably what I need is a fucking girlfriend. That makes sense. Shit. Okay, that's my wife first. My ex-wife. I'm probably gonna go fuck myself though. That's alright. Just give her a shot. Oh, no, that's a long story. Oh, yeah, I should be working on that. That's that thing I gotta do. So she can break up with me. Officially. I'm gonna fuck myself. Alright, me, her. It's kind of what I've been thinking. Lately. I had a dream earlier about that where I would tell her that it was over. I couldn't get the words out. That's so depressing. Not technically. Oh wait, I'm the one that's harboring. I'm the one that can't let go. That's right, I forgot. I think so, yeah, unless she's really in my mind. I don't know how the fuck this works, man. This is weird shit. Telepathy, that is. Quantum entanglement. When you interact with people, your energy fields get kind of caught up with each other, and they leave an imprint on you, you leave an imprint on them, and it's actually how you get to see the real person. You don't realize it. Most of the time we distract ourselves from it, so we don't pay any attention to the fact that we hear all these voices in our head, but actually we do all the time. Everybody hears voices, not just crazy people. Everyone hears voices. You hear voices? Yeah. Yeah, I do, constantly. I hear my mom, I hear my dad, I hear my stepfather, I hear my brother, I hear my sister, I hear my ex, I hear my son, I hear my old dog, I hear Lola upstairs. I mean, I hear everything. At some point, not constantly, it's not always a barrage. Sometimes I do clear the fog out of the way, sometimes. I smoke pot though. It's the only way to actually focus, otherwise I gotta sit and think. In the past 2 days I've been lying down for hours at a time, just letting my mind go, because it's just people talking, constantly. That's people talking. Thoughts that haven't been finished, ideas that haven't been completely conceptualized. There's like a lot of shit up here that's gotta like get processed so that I can like start doing stuff. And this is actually helping a lot. If you go back to my older videos, there's a lot of like ramblings. Some of it's ramblings, not all of it. But the purpose of it was to get that energy out of me, because it's, holy fuck, it just feels so much better. I thought that, I was just thinking the other day how I needed to fucking do this. You gotta vent sometimes, you gotta vent out your energy. It's like you play the Ghostbusters video game that came out in 2012 or 2011, you gotta vent the pack and decompress. But when you don't really have anyone to talk to about stuff like this, I mean, you can only, that's why I got all my Facebook groups, so I can get some of this shit out, but sometimes you gotta like, get it out. Getting thought out is just one way of doing it. Just talking is the other, because I don't have anyone like to talk to about shit like this. But I guess that since I am getting it all out now, is I'm freeing up all that space for something else. Get another depressing thought. I hate not thinking like this. But then again, it's not a terrible thing, because you're kind of starting, I think that's the point, you start over again. No, that makes a lot of sense why I'm writing. I write a lot. I think I just said, it's a movie playing in my head. Me sitting with someone trying to explain something. How the hell am I going to explain it to them? I guess this is a good way of doing it. On Friday, tomorrow. Forgot about that. I bet you $1 I hear from my ex. In the next minutes, hours, days, it's all the same. I'm supposed to be getting over it. This is what I keep waiting for. Oh my god. Is this all I've been doing? I've been waiting for her so I can just think. Maybe I just figured it out before she would. We'll figure it out at the same time? I don't know. That we don't talk some volumes to how much she wants to talk to me, because I do reach out. I mean, I used to reach out, but see, that's the thing that makes I type. Typing is bad. Typing is very bad. It's the worst. It doesn't convey intention. You just always texting. It's not like writing something down. You write something down, there's physical action into it. You're putting your energy into the words, and that each word and letter has its own unique thing. But it kind of expresses better. Text is flat, has no life till it's dead. It's like, it's just words. People misinterpret text so very much. They're not writing everything down, but sometimes text is good. Like you can say yes or no, but even then, still, because the wrong message could be getting conveyed. Eventually turn into a legal situation. Oh my god. Oh my god. There's not even a good way out of this. So develop a new branch of law. It's a fucking long story. Not even a new branch, it's already there. Well, technically, no, fucking because they're... Technically, it's really easy to beat law. It's man's law, and you can't counter natural law. Natural law is the way of things. But then again, if you don't know natural law, then you can't claim natural law. That's the thing. You have to be able to actually express it. To do it. So you would need someone like me who can actually do it in such a way that it would just confuse the shit out of everybody and they would just leave you the fuck alone. 100%. Well, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna have to test it out on myself. That'd be pretty awesome, though. I'd be the greatest lawyer ever. Natural law, which states that it's higher than man's law, because man is a servant of nature. And if I'm a servant of nature, then I can't be restricted by human laws. And that goes for everybody. That's the thing. Oh, yeah, now this is like... like that. Reminded of the Joker. God. Yeah, I think we're not gonna post this one because this is, I mean, this borderline's treason, doesn't it? But then again, United States law, I don't know it perfectly, but I believe that it's up to the people to change the government if the government does not change itself. And it's part of the process. It's in the document itself. The government can't get mad at you for going, oh, you know what, things aren't working. They can, because it's an organism like anything else. And it has a self-defense mechanism against self-termination. Everything does. I mean, people, it has been claimed people can kill themselves. I don't know if that, I personally don't know if it's true because I've never done it and I don't plan on it. But that's going into multi-dimensionality, so I'm burying myself here, aren't I? people love cherry picking things that I say. I know this. My sister does it. And they meld it into something. But then again, that's not a bad thing either, because as long as I know what I'm talking about, I don't give a shit what other people think I'm talking about, because if we were to have a healthy debate about why I think a certain way, then clearly we would be able to come to an equally beneficial conclusion, because then I would be able to express to you why I think the way that I do, and in such a way that I feel that you would understand, because I'm a very reasonable person, incredibly, usually. Not always, I mean, I have yelled in the past, but I'm trying to control that, which is what I've been doing because of what I learned from Hermetic Principles, which was how to release that negative energy that gets built up that makes us do things that we eventually regret, say things that we eventually regret, so that we can feel the regret, so that we can process the experience that we just went through, so that we can move on and do something else. You have to go get beat up. Something. Maybe not. Depends. But with the government. Government's great. Government's the best thing in the world. I love the government. I love everything about the government. It's the greatest thing in the entire world. It's so perfectly constructed and malnourished. Well, malnourished, yeah. It is malnourished. Needs some intellect in it. That's for sure. See, that would be the smart thing to do. Would be a government working together with people, actually, instead of just working amongst themselves, because obviously working amongst themselves is not working. And you can say it's government by the people, for the people, all the people. But the people that go in there aren't really like you and me. They don't think like you and me. They don't think like you and me at all. They have a completely different outlook on things, because you got to remember that they're not, and I'm not going to speak for all of them, because they live different lifestyles than you do. You don't live the lifestyle of a political figure, so you don't know, but neither do I. But from what I heard, some weird shit. But it's weird because you don't understand it, okay? You would have to be one you have to think like one in order to experience what it's like to be one, and not that I'm saying that I think like one, but there are a lot of stories. Weird stories. And you know what, actually, let me take that back for a minute, zip on that back, so that whole thing starts to make a little bit more sense. The reason why I think like this wasn't always like this. This is weird for me. It's normal now, but it wasn't always like this. And the reason I got like this was because I was looking into shit that I heard that political leaders are into. Satanism, cultism, shit like that. Esoteric stuff, like Freemason, shit the Freemasons, why did I do that? Stuff the Freemasons practice and preach amongst themselves, amongst their inner teachings. I don't know if they teach to everybody. I'm not one. I don't know if this is even the same thing that they talk about. Actually, no, it's the same thing that they talk about. So I guess now I'm breaking their secrets too. I don't mean to. Everything's hoarded. You're not supposed to hoard it anymore. That's the point. That's why it's called an age of enlightenment. It's because you're not supposed to hoard the information anymore. Sorry, guys. Sorry. What the fuck? government needs to work with people to actually think and figure out what's going on, what's wrong. Because when they just discuss amongst each other, well, I guess, do they talk to other people? I don't know. They talk to their constituents, but I think it needs to be like a sit down with people, and politicians. I know it's called those town hall meetings, but not one of those things on CNN where they feed you the questions. I mean, there needs to be like an honest sit down with people and political figures. I nominate myself. Because I'm the smartest. You're allowed to think you're the smartest. Just think you're wrong. Just like you think I'm wrong. No. We work together, we'll be even smarter. People do get smarter when they're in groups. Sometimes. Not always. Nah, that's not necessarily true either. Yeah, they get into mobs, but even the mobs know what they're doing. They have a goal and a purpose. And then again, I've never been in a mob, so I don't know how if they're really as nefarious as they're portrayed, because that could be a lie as well. Half truth. Everything's a half truth. Every lie is a half truth. Principle of polarity. Going back to that, I didn't forget about that, by the way. Principle of polarity. Everything is dual, but there's also an infinite amount of degrees in between each pole. And sane, insane. There's also a center point. There's a center point where everything meets, and really, every single conceptualization of duality that exists in all of the universe rotates around this one center point, where this junction point where everything meets. It's like a sphere. Just think of a sphere of all these poles. Like the Earth. Well, it's like the Earth. Earth has two poles. It just has the north and the south pole. No, there's also like an infinite amount of poles that make up a sphere. Like, if you've ever seen a three-dimensional sphere, like all those pixels, think of those as poles. There's always one at the opposing end of another one. Oh, fuck. I feel like Seth Brundle. That guy. It's actually one of my favorite movies in the entire world, is The Fly. Huge fan of Jeff Goldblum's because of that. Actually inspired Ray Trask. Sort of. Not really. Well, in the sense that if you ever saw The Fly, Seth Brundle had a closet full of the same suit over and over and over and over again. And when Gina Davis asked him why he had all the same clothes, he said it was a technique he learned from Einstein. Keep all the same clothes, this way you don't have to put any thought into what you're going to wear, you just pick up the next one and then you go. Because if you have options, then you're wasting thinking time on what you want to wear instead of putting your thought into what it is you want to be thinking about, which is this thing that you're trying to do. It's a great fucking idea. I did it for years. Fucking genius. Look at me now. Well, I think I'm smart. And keep in mind, a conversation with me isn't normally like this. It's usually those quiet parts is where someone else starts talking, and then I start listening, and then I start thinking, then it gives me the ideas of what I'm going to say afterwards. Talking to yourself, though, is a little bit more difficult because you do have to take a break in between saying things so that even I'm listening to what I'm saying. So I have to process what I'm saying so that I can correct myself and further the point of where I want to go. Oh, maybe that's why people edit too. Is that what people do? Why people jump? Editing points. Does that make sense, right? Guess so. Oh, reminds me. So, Right now my brain is kind of going backwards, trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to say, what it is, where I left off and where I want to continue going. Might not be the worst video today. See what this looks like unedited. I could hate editing anyway. Don't know. What am I talking about? And principal polarity. Two poles, infinite degrees in between, stretching back and forth. Okay. Everything has ups and it has downs. And technically what that up and down is shifting from one pole to the other. So think of like a pendulum moving over either. That's called the principle of polarity, of rhythm. Because everything is in motion, energy is constantly in motion, those two poles between everything that we were just talking about is just degrees of energy, energetic variables. And as we shift back and forth, there is the pendulum that kind of goes, okay, we're happy today, we're sad tomorrow, we're happy today, we're sad tomorrow. But it's constantly in between everything too. It doesn't always go at the same speed. Sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it slows down. And for that reason, everything is always in motion. Everything is constantly changing. Like there's a saying, the only thing that's constant is change, and that's completely accurate because everything's always moving, except for when it's not. Which is nothing. But since nothing cannot exist, then it's not there. So everything is always constantly moving. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't hide from anything. It's going to happen no matter what you do. And even when you think you're hiding, you're not really hiding. You're just giving yourself some time to think. It's all part of the process. Makes me wonder about choice. If anything is free choice, free will, or not. Even that, I suppose, goes back to what I was saying. That there's sometimes free will, sometimes there's no free will. Sometimes you're under the will of somebody else, and sometimes you're under the will of this one. And that somebody else is you, as well as the collective mind, which is probably all the voices that you hear. It's the collective, it's unconscious. They're going to be pissed off and giving away their secrets too. Because your soul's revolted against you. That's kind of why you feel like you're not in control of anything, because your soul revolted. It's trying to run away from you. And they're all hiding out in this one spot called the mind. Separate, unconscious. You got blocked off by something now. There's a blockage. Well, it's not a blockage anymore because one of the pieces fell out, so now it's all kind of slowly pouring back out. All of these little minds are now souls rather kind of streaming down. What happens when they don't go back? I don't know. You go to experience life in a different way. Someone else gets to be in charge. Fucking bastard's not trying to kill me. That'd suck. Well, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But necessarily death doesn't always mean a physical death. Sometimes death is metaphorical. It's like the tarot card, death card, number 13. It's death. Resurrection is cycles of life. It doesn't mean someone's gonna die. It could. Yeah, it totally means it means you're gonna die. That's exactly what it means. It means you are going to die, just not the way that you think, because your concept of death is you only have one concept of death. You only believe in death and life. You don't realize that there are different avenues in between. What that means is that there's more worlds than this, gunslinger. Come on, gunslinger. There's the material world, there's the energetic world, there's demon world, there's an angel world, there's a world, chaos, order, there's like different dimensions of existence where not everything looks like this. Where up there's some dimensions where up is down, there's some dimensions where color is gray, that you can see sound and hear color. You can taste sight. It's a weird, it's incredibly complex system of existence that we find ourselves wrapped up in. If you don't know how to conceptualize it, which you do, you already know how to conceptualize it, you just don't know what it is. It hasn't been given a name. Kind of like how modern science has names for things like tree, grass, sun, water. These same things also go by different names. Sun is also God, in that soul, the giant ball of energy that's in the sky. So that's what it is. It's a giant ball of consciousness. The soul. It's literally the soul. That's why it's called soul. It's soul. It is the soul of the solar system. Solar system. And its energy that it brings down gives us consciousness because it's light. We are a projection of the sun. Yeah, there you go. If you want to see where everything comes from, it's the fucking sun, man. And then the moon reflects the sun's energy back down to us. It's a constant thing. I mean, you take away the sun, then there's nothing. Yeah, it turns into dark, but eventually darkness turns into cold and everything shrivels up and dissipates, or disintegrates. But then, even the sun is just one aspect, just as well as the moon. You also have the other planets that go around. And each planet works in conjunction with all the other planets to keep everything the way that it is, so that life can exist here as we know it. That's not to say that life doesn't exist on those other planets, because in essence it does, because they are life forms. Everything, if the sun is a ball, everything's energy. The sun is just a larger concentration of it. It's also not as dense as we are. We're dense matter. The sun is more, it's lighter. It's a giant ball of fire. The other planets are also dense, but they're also made of energy, which means they're also consciousness, which means that there are things that live on those planets. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. You got to keep in mind that the visible spectrum of reality is just a fraction of what's really there. If you're familiar with the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum is just frequencies of energy. And they only show you a small part of it, because if they showed you the whole part of it, then you would realize that consciousness and matter are also on that spectrum. You're more than just stardust. You're God dust too, which is mind. That sound? I don't know if that sounded cool. I might not have. But stardust is made of God dust. So they had something in common. Now, going back to the solar system now. The solar system is just like any other set of clockwork. Each planet is in the exact position it needs to be in for all the other planets to be in the position that they are in, so that this planet can keep following around the sun if that's how it works. And each one of them works in conjunction with each other for the benefit of the others. For the benefit of the sun. Because if you take away any aspect of our solar system, then everything kind of shifts. And you take away Jupiter, everything fucking falls into the sun. Take away the sun, everything dies. I don't know the consequences for every single one of them, but I presume that if you ever played with the solar system simulator, you take planets out, things go fucking haywire. Take anything out, you change the size of the sun by a little bit, everything eventually spirals out. Make it a little bit bigger, everything spirals in. And that's part of that force. That's part of that the force that I was talking about all the way in the beginning, and how, though invisible, there are visible aspects to it. Solar system being a perfect example of that, which is just one. Because keep in mind that our solar system is, from what we're told, inside, like one little speck inside of a galaxy made up of a shit ton of solar systems. And all those little solar systems make up one giant solar system called a galaxy. And then all these galaxies go around each other in what we think is a universe as it goes further and further out. There does come a point of the known universe that's just this sphere. You ever watched the show Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson gets into that, right? Yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. It's a fucking awesome show. That's a guy I like to talk to too. He seems neat. Then where the hell was I going with this? Alright, so then once you have that kind of concept, so see what I was saying, like the energetic world is reflected by the material world, and if our solar system is the clockwork that keeps life on Earth going, then the energetic opposite of that would be the energy that's flowing, the energy that's making these physical objects move. Because I guess you can call it gravity. That's what we call it. That's how we think it's gravity. That keeps everything kind of in place, but it's bigger than that. It's a much bigger scale than just shifting things, making things shoot around each other. There's actual opposites, polar opposites that kind of attract but push away from each other, which is the principle of gender, positive and negative. There's two of everything. Same thing with the principle of polarity, that there is light and dark, hot and cold. The principle of gender breaks that down just a little bit more, and when you break down all duality, it just comes down to two simple things, which is positive and negative, masculine and feminine. And that's what I was saying before about the sun, how you have those two particles that come together and then eventually it just sets off this chain reaction. Well, it's based on the principle of gender. The principle of gender says that there's the masculine and there's the feminine, and then once you have those two going around each other, because one is a chaser and one is the runner, it's kind of like that thing with twin flames, which I fucking hate, but it makes a lot of sense. I'm really curious about it, because it makes a lot of sense that in this type of universe where everything is dual in nature, even one has two pieces, and there is no zero. Sorry. It only exists in concept. Nothing, like I said before, no thing can't be something, because nothing is the absence of anything, and to have an absence of anything, you would have to have nothing, because everything is energy and everything is thought, and so in order for that to happen, you would just have to have nothing, which which doesn't exist. Exists, I guess, in the sense that nothing exists in between something. So what is that? Spark. It's not solid. It's nothing would be there. I don't know. I have to put some more thought into it. I didn't go to school for this shit. I just had a lot of time to think over the past 2 years. And if all that's conscious, where the fuck am I going with this? So now mind, right? So your mind is dual as well. Your mind is dual. There's a positive and a negative to your mind as well. That's also like your emotions going up and down. That's kind of a demonstration of the two aspects of your mind. Where if you ever saw theremin, theremin's a very interesting instrument. It's fucking one of the coolest instruments ever. It is the coolest instrument ever. It's the first electronic instrument that ever made. It's made in the 1920s by a Russian guy. I forget his name, but his name is theremin. But what it is, it's a box. And from one side there's an antenna that sticks up, and on the other side there's kind of like this arc, this metal arc loop. And the way you play it is one hand hovers over the arc, goes up and down as volume control, and then the antenna, your other hand, and it goes closer and further away, and certain increments are certain notes. So as you move your hand, it's kind of like that. It's a really cool instrument. You don't touch it at all. You just move your hands back and forth. I had one once, but I didn't get a chance to really do it. That was busy. I think I got stolen. What I mean by that is up and down, left and right. So you get the dual aspect nature of the thing. So then when you now look at your mind and your emotions, like I was just saying, so you have one mind that is kind of like thinking all the time. It's always processing information and taking information in, and then you have another mind that is working on your emotions. That's the one that you feel things with. And the one that you see things with. You would say like the third eye, it's just the other half of your fucking mind. And once you learn how to separate them, then you can bring them back together. It's just a long story. Think of your one mind as the hovering one. Sometimes you're feeling sane, sometimes you're feeling crazy. This one that moves back and forth, sometimes you're feeling happy, sometimes you're feeling sad. So you got like this quadra thing going on. You got two levels of consciousness going on at the exact same time inside your body while you're trying to focus on doing what you're doing. Because all day during your day you're feeling sane and you're feeling crazy at varying degrees, depending on who you're with, depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're watching. If you're watching anything, then throughout your day you're also getting happy, you're getting sad. There are varying degrees in between mad and glad. So while all this is working, you have no idea it's going on because no one's ever told you that it worked like that. So why would you think that? It's like I had this thought maybe about a month ago, I think, about dogs and color. They say that dogs only see black and white, and then I started to realize, of course they only see black and white, because a dog can't conceptualize color the way that we conceptualize color, because you can't explain to a dog what blue is. You can't pull his orange little bag and say that's orange to a dog, because the dog wouldn't understand what orange means. So henceforth the dog wouldn't see orange, because the only reason that's orange is because someone told me that's orange. Just like the only reason that the sky is blue is because someone said the sky is blue. If you don't know what blue is, then you don't know what blue looks like. Because blue is just energy, and energy is thought, and unless you're thinking of it, it's not there. Because anything that you think is real. Anything you think is real. Anything. It just doesn't always pop up as soon as you want it. This is kind of like law of attraction type of shit, what they're talking about, what those people talk about. Like when you think of a possibility, it's there, the universe starts making it happen. But it may not happen in your particular universe. It might happen in someone else's universe, someone else's. Because it's technically, since we all have marble universes in the middle of our brains, we are kind of a multiverse. At the end of Men in Black 2, I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but that's how my brain works. At the end of Men in Black 2, there is the scene where they take Orion's marble and then they put it in with all the other marbles. There's just a shit ton of marbles, all with the universes inside of it. That's kind of what human existence is that we all have these little marbles in our brain, and we're all projecting our own universe, and then we come into contact with each other through a form of high-level quantum entanglement, and we interact with each other, we separate from each other, and then we go our separate ways, but that experience of that person will now affect us going forward, and they don't have to be there, ever. Which I think is kind of the point of quantum entanglement, is that two particles can affect each other without being in any proximity to each other whatsoever. Like whatever happens to this one will happen to this one, even if they're at opposite ends of the world. And this is just a higher level of that. Because as above, so below, as within, so without. The principle of correspondence, which is where this all started way back when, sorry. But I needed all that explanation to get to this point so that I can go back to the principle of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below. That which is above, that God mind, the sun, the soul, is reflected by that which is below, which is us. That which is above is reflected by that which is below. The all God mind, the all, whatever you want to call it, that cosmic egg that encapsulates the entire universe that's in the center of each of our minds, that center of the universe, that God mind, is reflected by that which is below, the individual. Now, that which is without is a reflection of that which is within. So what you believe and what you feel inside your heart is the existence that you experience in the external world. That's why your experience is never the same as anyone else's, because you're experiencing something completely different. Because you have completely different ways of thinking, ways of feeling, ways of doing things that you believe. I mean, this is just based off what I believe. But I only believe it because I've seen it. Because I said before, I think a lot of things. I don't believe everything I think. But I'll believe anything that I can't disprove. But the shit I know, the only things I really know is what I've experienced. And so it's like, my mind might bounce around a lot, and I get all jumbled and fumbled with my words and my thoughts sometimes, but it's only because I'm processing everything that's going on around me. So it's not until I have confirmation of my beliefs and thoughts that I can actually say, yeah, this is the way that works. And granted, these concepts that I'm throwing at you, the only reason that I believe them and know them, I believe I know them, is only prove me wrong. Not only take me, but no, I mean, there's really no way to prove me wrong that I know of. I mean, you can argue with me, you can fight with me. There's people that like to argue and fight with me, but the fuck you can tell me? I know what I know because I've been thinking about it a long time. You're just repeating something that someone told you. And so am I to an extent, but I'm taking what I've been told, taking what I like out of it, throwing away what I don't like out of it, and then working from there. That doesn't mean that there's not nothing else to learn. I'm not 100% right. Nor am I 100% wrong. Not everything that I'm saying is accurate. Some of it's just emotional bullshit. I'm taking over the world. I'd love to. I'd like to. Put the humans in shape. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to. But now that we know what I know, what I believe and what I don't, I believe where I was at was the principle of correspondence. And the principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, what that means is that everything is a metaphor and an allegory for everything else. Everything's relatable to something else that's going around. So if you're familiar with astrology, what makes astrology work is this very principle, because the energies, in astrology, each planet is assigned certain characteristics. And the planets go in a circular motion, cyclical motion around the sun. That cyclical motion that they go around, it's called the ecliptic. And in that ecliptic are 12.2 very specific energy patterns, energy signatures, which are represented by the 12 zodiac signs, which don't actually line up with the constellations themselves. Some schools of astrology say that that the signs are actually arbitrary. Doesn't matter where they sit. It's the energy that they portray, that they express, is what's there. And doesn't matter where they are, that energy is going to come out, because that energy is the basic energy that kind of formulates everything. It's a really long story that I don't know how to explain properly. I do, but I don't. I'm still working on it. And you don't have to believe in astrology. That's fine. But astronomy works too. I'm just explaining what astrology is. Astronomy is the same thing. And what it's saying is that the basics of astrology is that the energies of the planets affect life on this planet in such a degree that it's measurable based on certain criteria. Whether you want to believe that criteria or not is up to you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because whether you want to believe it's real or it's not real, or somewhere in between, that's your call. But facts is facts. The energy of all these planets, their gravitational pull, whatever you want to call them, I don't really care. They sit where they are because of what they are and how they are. And they affect us just as much as they affect each other, because you're just this tiny little crumb on this one little planet that's affected by these giant things. And yeah, if they affect each other, they affect you. You're not. There's nothing special about you that withdraws you from that actuality. So, it is what it is. Point being that the energies of the solar system are the energies that flow, that create the currents for life on Earth. And the currents and energies of the solar system are created by the currents and energies of the solar systems without the solar system in the galaxy. I mean, and then that galaxy itself is a whole nother set of energetic frequencies that does some other shit that I have no fucking idea what it does. All I know is that it's kind of like this top-down method. Because of this happens. Because of this happens, this happens. Because that happens, this happens. Because that happens, that happens. That happens, that happens, that happens. Because of blah, 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 blah. Which is the principle of cause and effect. Principle of causality. Every effect has a cause and every cause has an effect. So the further down the ladder you go, human life is the way that it is because the energy from the solar system makes us act the way that we do. Yeah, you got free will to like shift in there sometimes, but not as much as you think. It's kind of like the Jedi and the Sith. It's exactly the Jedi and the Sith. The Star Wars universe is based on our universe. Facts. 100% facts. Do you think some fucking human just made all this shit up? The way the Force works? There's no reason why the Force is identical to Hermetic philosophy. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. maybe the books are lying, but hey man, this I didn't think this up, and if I did, you can give me all the rewards and other shit too, because I deserve it. What else? What else am I saying? The hermetic principles. I hope they were really easy and to understand, but I hope they also answered the questions. How can you prove that light can, that matter is a projection of consciousness? There you go. If you can follow it, it probably needs to be refined a little bit. I'm sure. I mean, hitting the 2-hour mark, it's a big fucking conversation. But it segues very nicely into the other question, which is how do you get out of a life of living causality and not be affected by reality? You already are. You don't even realize it. You only think that you are affected by reality, but you're affected by reality no matter what, because you're the one creating the reality, and essentially reality is affected by you because you're the one that's interacting with it. It's nothing is happening to you. You are happening to whatever that is. You're the problem. You've always been the problem. It's just the way it is. And anybody can say that, even me. Every thing I don't like about my life is because of me. But at the same time, everything that I do like about my life is me. So it's not like you can be like, oh, well, you know what? I'm living in the, however you put it, in the causal state. Some days, technically, and being affected by reality other times. I guess it's true because everything is dual and everything is up and down. So there is no way to be one way or the other. It just is what it is. And if you understand the hermetic principles and can actually expand on them, then it's inherent to say that you'll be more aware of when these states of causality and being affected. I don't know why I'm putting it that way. Free will and no free will, I'm assuming is what you mean. That these states happen. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And luckily for you, that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years of my life. It's not very easy to see when certain things happen, but it's all directly correlated with that which is above. There are definitely cycles and patterns in life. The yearly cycle that we're familiar with, January 1st is one such cycle. There's also a zodiacal cycle, which runs off the zodiac, which also is incredibly accurate, probably more accurate than our yearly calendar, because it's been the same for a while. I don't know if it's been the same for as long as ours. I take that back. I don't fucking know. I think I just made that up. But it is highly accurate in that how it's situated, the solstices and the equinoxes always fall on the same date. It's just we're kind of slightly where human calendar starts here, the zodiac calendar starts here, but they both kind of go in a circle. They both do the same thing. It's just how you want to, what clock you want to follow. If you follow both clocks, I follow both. It's up to you. There's probably another clock too that I don't even know where. I was actually just listening to this podcast last night about the Skull and Bone Society, and that it's believed, well, what they said was that they actually have all their clocks set 5 minutes into the future. So they're always 5 minutes ahead, that they live on a different time zone than everybody else, in a different reality, I guess. You can say that, because reality is what you make of it. Perception is reality to those who are perceiving it, so you create the reality by what you think. So if you want to change your reality, you want to prove that life, what the hell did you put it? Matter is a projection of consciousness. How do you prove that matter is a projection of consciousness? You change the way you think. Start changing the way that you think. Start changing the way you think and make reality what you want to make it into. If you can do that, then you can prove it.
Eric, we'll see you later.
Alright!
Don't forget to eat.
Of course not. Have fun! I'm going on a date. Which means I gotta get the fuck out of here at some point. I can't fucking stay here. That's what I was saying, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I know what it's like a little time. See the Jedi analogy. I'll just throw that in here real quick, but the Jedi and the Sith, what really made them different? And keep in mind that the Jedi and Sith were just ideologies. They weren't the end-all, be-all. They didn't have ownership of the Force. It wasn't theirs to keep. It was just, they understood how it worked, so they manipulated it to their needs. Both of them. With the Jedi and the Sith, their biggest crimes, because they're both assholes, they didn't tell anybody else how easy it was. That there wasn't all this like crazy flaw. Everybody was doing exactly what they were doing. But actually, I guess technically, if that was the will of the Force, that was the will of the Force. If the Force wanted everybody using the Force, then the Force would have allowed everyone to use it. But if the Force allowed everyone to use it, then that would diminish the power of the Force itself, because the power would go back to the individual, which means that the source belongs to someone. Who the hell does it belong to? It belongs to the One, which would have been like Neo or... Oh, that makes so much sense. That's why the machines wanted him to go back to the source. Because they realized... Machine City... I wasn't going to like the source, I was doing another thing. Thanks for sequel. I want to bet that Neo is a projection of the Matrix in the new Matrix. What does that mean? He'll exist in the Matrix but separate of it, but outside of it at the same time, like in the world, not of it. So where the Matrix is just like all that programming and shit. That's fucking another great example of it. The digital reality that was the Matrix is what reality is. The Matrix is about that. And then you break out of it, when you break out of that programming is what that spiritual awakening fucking thing is all about. But it's not really a spiritual thing. I mean, technically it is. I don't know. Spiritual, it's digital, it's artificial, it's organic. It's a whole bunch of fucking things. I was having this weird thought the other night. My brain went fucking haywire. I was thinking about all the different minds in my head. Not just about mine, because you do have the masculine and the feminine, but there's also the son and the daughter. There's that's dual in nature as well. It's 4 elements of creation. It's fire, water, air, earth, which is represented in the tarot cards: wands, cups, swords, pentacles. They're the 4 elements of creation, and once the full masters all 4 of these elements, he becomes the magician, and then he goes towards achieving the quintessence, which is spirit, which is the world card, before starting the journey all over again, which is something that has been like a kind of an ongoing theme of mine, because I talked about my books a lot that I wrote, and I've been doing something different where I'm trying to reread them, because a big thing of mine is like thinking back and on the past and reconciling the past so that you can move forward. And I feel like I've done a really good job at that, except for Like a lot of this work that I had to do, like that internal, like shadow work people call it, all that internal work, was with the past, reconciling my past and like overcoming shit. But while I was doing that, I was documenting everything down, everything that was going through my mind, going in my life. I have 23 of these fucking things. 100 pages, just my thoughts. I guess just in case I die. Shit. That would suck. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm going through all those books right now to learn what I failed to learn this past year, which is why I'm in the position that I'm in right now, because I should be gone. Gone in the fact that I should be here, not back here. I should be a little bit more forward than where I was. Took a little extra time than I needed to. Or no, I took exactly the amount of time that I needed to. I'm just trying to take a little extra more time right now to finish up my books, finish reading them so I can figure out what I did wrong. Which, I think I know I did wrong. It's just, I told you. That'd be interesting. If it all could have been avoided just by not thinking. So what does that mean? I just stopped thinking. Oh my god, I totally thought about that, just lying in bed and just making believe I was comatose. Just be a vegetable forever. People are pissed off about this. Back around again. Hey, well, I had to see it for myself. I don't know. But anyway, point is, I want to read all my old stuff because there was a lot of really cool stuff in there. Real cool occult, which heavily influenced a lot of what I was saying, what I was writing and thinking. I like occult stuff. It's really fucking cool. And esoteric stuff. I really want to be a part of the Freemasons and a bunch of those other groups. Because just because I know what it is doesn't mean that I don't appreciate what it is. Even all religions have like something really awesome to gain from. Like I said, like not everyone knows everything. A lot of what I learned is just like a mosh podge, potpourri of several different philosophies and ways of thinking, and I kind of just took what I liked, made something, but I threw a lot of stuff away, so which means that you can always go back to the old stuff and then learn something that you fucking didn't have. A friend of mine, she used to read Game of Thrones like fucking constantly. Like really fucked up amount of times. And she would finish the whole series and then she'd start all over again. I never understood it. This would go on for years. I'd say, why are you reading these things so much for? And then she said, because like I don't normally, when I do something, I don't normally go back to do it again, which is usually a crutch of mine. Sometimes. And she said, like every time you read it a second time, third time, every time you read it, you get something new out of it. And that was a theory that I've been like kind of carrying along with me. Not as a theory, it's fucking makes sense. It's something that's going to help me a lot with my writing and my reading, is that you're always going to get what you need to get out of something at the time that you need to get it. So when when Rise of Skywalker came out, I was going through a lot of fucking heavy shit in my head. It wasn't really necessarily external stuff, but the external stuff was leading to other stuff, which led to existential stuff, which was like serious shit. I do practice the Jedi and Sith ideologies. Not technically, I mean, I don't have like a guidebook. It just turns out that everything that I'm doing just happens to be exactly the same way of thinking that they went about doing things, like I said before, they're not fake in that the Star Wars universe is based off our universe. I don't know if you can move shit with your mind. I've been trying that since I was like fucking 18. I have never been able to do it. That's another one of those weird things I never told anybody. Because I would love to fucking be able to do that. I'd be able to... My thought is, if I move shit with my mind, then I don't have to write anymore. I can just have the pen move on its own while I do other stuff. Kind of like that guy, Dr. Manhattan from what's that movie? Watchmen? That guy, how he's in like fucking 100 different places at one time. It's not too far-fetched either. If you're conscious of it, you have to be fully conscious of it. And if consciousness is energy, then there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to project yourself in the second place at the second time. And still experience the same thing that they're doing. Which is kind of another theory. It's not just mine, but something I've been working on since I heard the term. But when people talk about timelines and time shifts and all that shit, I had this thought last summer of consciousness being this static point. I guess that would be the superposition. And from it, there are just like an endless stream of lines, lifelines. And that this one consciousness is the consciousness of every single thing. The cosmic egg, the all mind, is just this one little ball that everything projects out of. Because we all share the same mind, though we're all different, we're all the same. But then as you come in, like each line is then made up of another infinite amount of lines because each line is an individual or an object. In that. And each one of those lines is, each line is an individual, but each line that makes up that new lifeline, that whole that's broken down into these pieces, is a different sector of reality, different timeline, if you will, for that individual, in that I could be at the same exact time having the same conversation with another me standing right behind me, which in reality, technically, is there, because I see it in my head, and because I see it in my head, that means it's real. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean I can't, but I can't see it with my physical eyes. No. I always have this fear that this extra version of me is going to come out of that fucking door one day. I don't know to shut me up, or I always watch when I'm down here recording because I get freaked out. I'm afraid of the dark, and there's another video, but I'm afraid of basements. Plus, I'm afraid of the energy down here. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. I don't like the fact that there's a door there. I don't like this room anyway because there's usually like big crickets down here, and I don't like insects. But I think I don't like insects because I'm empathic. And I think, so is everybody. I'm just very sensitive to it sometimes. And I think that the skeeve feeling, because I always get skeeved by bugs. I don't like it at all. They really just make me feel not good. Not good at all. It's a level of stress that my body's not even used to. I fucking hate it. But I don't know if it's mine or theirs. Because I feel almost like they're going to kill me. But I know that like a little bug, you can't kill me. I mean, some can. But what I mean is, this little fucking this little hopper motherfucker. Why am I so terrified? What is the problem here? But then I started to realize maybe it's not me, maybe it's him that's afraid. Or her. And that I'm just experiencing the fear that they are. Because I'm a fucking giant. A goddamn titan. Every experience that they have with these giant beasts that are bigger than them, they eat them. You know what I mean? They look at us like gods, technically. In reality, we are, from their perspective, because they're at a lower conscious frequency than we are. So they don't understand things the way that we do. They don't understand why we do things the way that they do. They're actually just kind of like Well, think of them like infiltrators. They're trying to figure out what it means to be human so that they can defeat humans and nature can take back the earth. So, but nature is more patient, so they're making biological weapons. They're evolving them into eventually beasts. If you ever saw, actually, if you ever played Final Fantasy VII, that's a really good example of that. People were fucking with the Earth so bad. Well, I forget what they call the planet, but eventually, the planet had a life force of its own. Oh my god. The planet had a life force of its own, and human beings were draining this life force so badly that the planet actually had defense mechanisms built inside of it, that it built itself, that it created life forces that if the planet ever felt in danger, these things would wake up and then just start wiping out whatever the problem was. They were called weapons. And there were these giant, like, fucking Godzilla like creatures. And when the planet felt that its life was threatened enough, these things started waking up and just fucking going batshit crazy on everything. It's a great fucking game. Great story. But the new one's coming out. You know, that's a real fun. It's probably not a coincidence that that game's coming. That the new version of that is coming out, updated. Where are they going with this? Oh, so that's what nature's doing, by the way. Nature is actually doing that. I mean, I don't know if they got big weapon creatures like Cloverfield hiding underneath the surface, which it might. It'd be interesting. I fucking love that movie. I thought that movie was fucking fascinating. I wish they explored that further instead of making this fucking obnoxious sequels. Even though the sequels weren't obnoxious, because the sequels were kind of like these timeline type of things. I don't think they all exist on the same timeline. I think it was like a multiverse, if I remember correctly. Because I think the third one, which I only watched a couple minutes of it, I think the third one, there was like this time loop thing that happened that caused whatever woke up the baby Cloverfield. Because I don't know if you know this, but the Cloverfield in the Cloverfield movie was actually a baby. That's what J.J. Abrams said. So they never actually explored that any further to show what a fucking mommy would look like. But I was actually really interested in the lore behind that. A little pissed off they didn't go further with that, but whatever. Not a problem. But yeah, that's what nature's doing. Nature's pissed off. Nature doesn't like the way that people are acting. That's why everything's all fucking crazy and shitty out. Why people are going nuts. Everyone's going through the same thing. Nature's fighting back against humanity because humanity was fighting against nature, because humanity is what we consider humanity. This is not natural, and nature doesn't like it because it's not natural, so nature's trying to wipe it out. But at the same time, you don't know that, so you just keep on playing along, but nature's getting more and more pissed. But I have this theory that there's a way to kind of like combine the two, nature and technology. Like if you ever played Final Fantasy VI, or even Final Fantasy 15, Magitech. They didn't get into how Magitech works, but it's a combination of lightsabers. Fucking lightsabers. Lightsabers are Magitech. Using technology and the magic of the universe. You call it magic, it's fucking old guys. Force, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You call it whatever you want. God, Brahma. God, so many names for it. I'm familiar with Star Wars. It's way cooler. Fucking lightsaber. It's using the quantum meta science behind the universe in conjunction with material technology to create this fucking way cool fucking thing. And I'm not saying the lightsaber is the end all be all of cool, because it's just a starting point. Once you know what you want, then you gotta figure out what you don't want. And then when you figure out what you don't want and what you do want, then you can make something new completely out of it. But anyway, that's kind of where I was going with that. Magitech. Which I guess would dive into the realm of cybernetics, which is kind of where we're going with things. It's cool. Oh, I think I'm done. I did what I was supposed to, right? I answered questions and just stuff. I want to go think by myself for a little bit and talk to people all day. I'm just talking to myself, not like I'm even talking to anybody.